Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to give you something a little bit different. Very sorry, I'm afraid there's going to be no game demonstration here or anything like that. It's actually the announcement of a new sub-series that I intend to start for the channel. At the moment I only have one, which of course is Ships of War, the constantly recurring one that pops up with either gratifying or annoying regularity. I'll leave that one up to you guys. But recently, for various reasons, I was inspired to consider starting a new one, which I am going to be calling, somewhat grandiosely, The Adventures of Sergeant Choong. Now, that does sound terribly narcissistic in some ways, so, I really ought to explain myself. Yes, boy, explain yourself. What is this nonsense all about? Well, before I dive into what brought this about, I probably better explain which game series game system I'm going to be using as the basis for the Good Sergeant's adventures. And that is my all-time favorite up front, the Second World War card game. Those of you who know it well will know it's a veteran game system that's been going strong since it first appeared in the 1980s. Those of you who know my channel well or have done any kind of scrolling through the video playlists will see that I've probably, oh Lord, I can't remember. I've done somewhere in the region of about 50 videos based on or around this game system. I love it that much. Apologies for, flooding the internet with upfront videos. And I know I'm not the only one out there who does that. This game is one of the most immersive, probably the most immersive land combat Second World War system I've ever had the good fortune to play, which is why I come back to it so often. Um, Now, I certainly can't claim to be an expert in the rules. In fact, those of you who've suffered through my videos on the channel will be all too familiar with the fact that in the heat of the moment, I forget rules, I get rules muddled, all kinds of chaos happens. But one of the things I really love is that for all of its, apparent complexities and rules subsections, this game never fails to spin an absolutely enthralling narrative, no matter what you're doing. And as a recreation of, the infantryman's eye view of the Second World War, it is unmatched. I will die happily on that hill. Um, so I play this game a lot. It's one of my constant companions, and I know it's been a very long time since I last made any videos about it. But that's really because I thought I'd kind of come to the end of permutations that I could put on my channel without them sort of bogging down into being, oh, let's have another variation of a meeting of patrols, the first scenario in the original game. But I really wanted to come back to it. And over the summer just gone, there were various things that got me thinking about the possibility of a new series. Um, so having name dropped the title and having, said I'd probably better explain myself. So we've got the system I'm going to be using up front. I suppose the very first inspiration for this started a couple of years back in 2022 when I received an absolutely wonderful Christmas card from the Miller family. Hi guys, good to hope you're watching this. If you are, hello. Really good friends of mine, although we've never had the privilege of actually meeting, but we met through the channel, who are absolutely wonderful folks and really, awesome people. But they sent me this lovely graphic, which has been, beautifully, painstakingly drawn, and which I now have the privilege of having as my avatar on the channel. But in addition to that, I was also delighted to find, because they knew me well enough to know I love this by now, they even did a Sergeant Choong upfront character card for me. And I've used this guy a lot. He has been on so many adventures you wouldn't believe. Um, of course, operating with the British Army a lot, but there've even been scenarios where I've attached him to the US Army. He's been everywhere, and I've got quite a few good stories under my belt. In fact, the most dramatic example of Anglo-American cooperation is when he was attached to one of the US divisions at the Battle of the Bulge. And in one very tense scenario, he was temporarily captured by the Germans and his US buddies rescued him. So thank you guys. He's still here talking about it. So I have my very own card in up front and I've been using him a lot. But what else happened? So over the summer, I was indulging in a bit of, I don't want to call it light reading, it's kind of fun. It was two things. One was the Flashman novels by George MacDonald Fraser. A lot of you, I expect, may have either heard of or read these. For those of you who haven't, Flashman is a hilarious character. The novels are set in the Victorian period, and Flashman is a British officer, diplomat. He does various different things, but the thing is, at his heart, and the hilarity lies in this core fact, Flashman is a self-serving coward of the lowest sort. But in his frantic efforts to basically save his own skin, he often ends up in situations where he emerges, very often the last man standing, and with a totally unwarranted reputation for courage and coolness under fire. And by the end of the novel series, he's knighted. He's got basically every award for valor that the British Empire can throw at him. And I like the cynical humor in those novels. I was also reading, drifting into the realms of sci-fi now, the Warhammer 40,000 universe's close equivalent of Flashman, which is the Caiaphas Cain novels. Now, unlike Flashman, Caiaphas is not a coward as such. He's actually physically quite brave. He's got a lot of physical courage and he's often in harm's way. But the novels are written as a sort of outpouring of his innermost thoughts. And he believes himself to be a coward in the Flashman mold. Now, whether that's warranted or not, read the novels, they're very good. But it got me thinking, because much as I enjoy using this guy, he tends to, I'll just say, over the last couple of years, Sergeant Choong's military record has been a bit, what's a polite word for it, has been a bit checkered. And the one thing I've noticed is he doesn't always do all that well, but he has a knack of coming back from a lot of actions. I've hardly ever lost him. And even when his squads have suffered terrible defeats, Sergeant Choong always seems to make it out suspiciously. And reading these various novels sort of got the creative juices going. And I thought, oh, maybe there's scope for using upfront as a storytelling mechanism. I mean, it already does that very well, but why not create a series out of it? And if this guy, behaves in a slightly Flashman, Caiaphas Cain-esque manner, then so much the better. But the only thing that stopped me at the time was the thought that, well, Upfront is a fun game, but it's also a very serious portrayal of a dark period in human history. And do I really want to turn it into a Blackadder-esque comedy? Would that be a bit disrespectful? And I was mulling over this question when the final bit of inspiration hit me, because when you get that feeling you've watched everything you want to see on Netflix and the summer holidays haven't quite come to a close and you still want something to do, I revisited this excellent series which I'd first encountered in my childhood, The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Here's another recommendation for you guys. If you have seen this before, but it's been a few years, definitely try and watch them again. They have aged really well. If you've never heard of these, they are brilliant. Look them up. each episode, at least when I watched them, they started with a rather aged Indy, complete with eye patch and rather battered look, sort of reminiscing about some random moment in his life. Um, and inevitably, a conversation he has normally with a complete stranger would lead to a bit of a reminisce. And then the camera would take you back to young Indiana Jones doing whatever. Um, Now, this was a three-part series that covered Indy's life, literally from about the year 1900 all the way up to immediately before the Second World War. So, it covered a lot. And the beauty of it was that he went everywhere and didn't always control events. In fact, very often he's swept up by them, but he pops up everywhere in these pivotal moments in human history. Um, and the thing I liked about the Young Indiana Jones series was that they were funny. Sometimes they were actually quite off the wall. This isn't the butt kicking Indiana Jones in the movies. The stories are so well written. He's still a young man, he's inexperienced, he's learning about the world, and he makes a lot of mistakes, but he has good friends to help him along the way. Um, and he's definitely not the invincible action hero, um, so yes, that was the final inspiration, because balancing these sometimes hilarious scrapes that Indy gets himself into was a lot of educational stuff about the real history of what went on in these moments that he was caught up in, what life was like, and each episode of the Young Indiana Jones series told those stories really, really well. I mean, they did a lot better than quite a few other historical dramas out there, and I've always been really impressed by them. And that was the final inspiration for what now in my tiny brain is coalescing into the adventures of Sergeant Chung, because I don't yet know whether this is a good idea. And actually, by all means, comment, guys. I really do value your opinion on this. If you think it's a terrible idea, then say, no, Andrew, don't do it. Or even, if you have any suggestions for how to refine this. But what I'm thinking for the format for the adventures of Sergeant Chung is it will be the dear old fellow who's obviously survived the war, reminiscing randomly about something that happened. And this doesn't have to be chronological. He could be anywhere, someone could mention something, go, oh yeah, I was there. And that's how it would start off. And I'd want to begin with a not exactly a deep dive, but an analysis of the action that the good sergeant claims to have participated in. Just give a bit of the history of what actually went on, what the campaign was like at, let's say, platoon or company level, who was involved, what were their objectives, um, and then move into a crafted scenario where I tell the story at ground level, but it's all about this guy's experience of what went on, and we see how the game plays out. Now, this is the interesting thing about using upfront. I am narrating a story, but I don't quite know how the story is going to end. So there could be some interesting moments where even the narrator is taken by surprise. I will just claim my memories are obviously a bit faulty. The other thing to note, of course, is this guy has plot armor. He would not be sitting there in, I don't know, say the 1970s, talking about his experiences if he caught a lethal bullet on a battlefield somewhere. So I'm going to have a bag of excuses for what happens to him if things go seriously south in any of these scenarios. But I'd like to give it a try because, again, Upfront is so good for stories, and I think it would be quite fun telling them from Sergeant Choong's perspective. So that's the idea. We'll play through the story and then do a sort of wash up. How did the historical campaign turn out? Did Sergeant Chung and his merry band have a pivotal role to play in it, or were they barely noticed against the big mass of the combatants? I just hope that it'll be a way of sort of highlighting interesting campaigns or battles that you guys might want to try gaming yourselves. Not necessarily with Upfront, maybe even with other systems, but also just to have a bit of fun and just do a bit of deep dive into some history. So now, unlike Ships of War, which I managed to keep a fairly regular serial, this will be quite an occasional one because I really want to make sure I've, basically done these campaigns justice by looking into them properly and being able to tell the history of what went on properly. So they won't pop up all that often. We're probably going to be lucky if they're monthly. But each segment will span several episodes at one go, and I intend, for those who follow these things, I'll be filing them under both the Upfront playlist, but I'm also going to give the Adventures of Sergeant Choong its own playlist. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me, just to float this idea that I'm going to go ahead with. As I say, any comments, any suggestions, anything you guys would like to say, please do, because I do actually rely on you guys heavily for so much, for good ideas, for very well-deserved corrections when I fluff rules up. And I think, much as I love the game, I've probably fluffed up upfront rules far more often than I have any other game system. Maybe that's a function of how often I play it. I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, no idea, comment, or suggestion is too silly or too crazy. Put them in there, because at the end of the day, for those of you who don't know this, Ships of War, I'm really gratified by how many of you guys watch Ships of War and leave really wonderful comments for me. But I didn't think of that idea. Ships of War came about because some kind soul left a comment on this channel ages ago saying, oh, why don't you compare ships, as portrayed in a game system and maybe talk about a bit of their history? And from that one comment, Ships of War sprang. So, do leave stuff if you've got a brainwave. I will certainly credit you for it. If it's a good idea that didn't originate from me. But either way, I hope you like the idea. I will get on to crafting episode 1, and for all I know, the series may evolve as it goes on. I've just realized I'm pushing towards 20 minutes in this video, which is insanely long for a sales pitch. I think that violates a lot of the principles of pitches like this, but there we have it. I really look forward to hearing from you guys, those of you who want to leave comments. And of course, I also greatly look forward to seeing you in my next video, which is already in the planning works. It's not going to be the Adventures of Sergeant Choong because I have to actually start, I have to set up the drawing board for that one. But it will be something that I hope you guys find interesting. But until then, do take care. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye.